Hello, hello. Good morning. It is court day number 5. Hi, hello, hi. Hi. We are starting court today. And it just so happens that we are a day behind, but that is okay because there's no court on Friday. So that gives us a little time to catch up again. It's just hard because I got to work, but I want to make sure I cover everything that happens that we can watch as it happens. I don't want to skip a day or anything because the one day you skip is the one day things go off the absolute rails. So, good morning. If you are here, I see Ronnie. I'm loving Lily's Court TV. Thank you. I'm having a lot of fun and I'm learning a lot. I'm doing like my own sort of like legal research at the end of the days with like the questions that I have, which is really interesting and fun. So I'm learning a lot there. David said, unfortunately, can't stay for the coverage, but I'll catch up later. Thank you for the fun information and perspective. Ta-ta for now. Thank you, Dave, for popping in. I appreciate that. So today we have day 5 of court. It is all queued up. I'm just sort of finishing sharing everything out so that as many people who want to watch it can. So let's just jump into day 5. Actually, no, before we do that, let's just do a quick what happened finishing day 4, which was post view. So the jury went on a view to see the 34 Fairview Road, which is where John O'Keefe was found unconscious, unresponsive in the snow. And so they went on a view and they were told they were not allowed to take any notes. They were not allowed to talk. They were not allowed to do their own sort of investigation. They were literally just going there to see it. The prosecution and defense both handed them an opening statement, which was basically just go there and see it. It'll help with all the things that we're telling you. It'll help you because there's things that we're saying and it's easier to know have the visual of it, right? You can get an idea of the street, maybe how far he was from the street. You can get an idea of, imagine if there's snow, because it's the middle of the summer now. It's like, it's not snow. There's no snow. So they went on a view and they were not supposed to take notes, but apparently some people might have. The judge was not very happy. The judge admonished the jury a little bit, but I don't think there were any major consequences. I think the bailiff probably went over the notes and was just like, it was probably like, just, okay, there's grass, there's the house, maybe like their guesstimate on the footage of where he was. So I'm having a feeling that it wasn't that big of a deal. But still, you weren't supposed to, and you did. Let's see. Then we had Greg Woodbury, who was a paramedic, who was doing chest compressions and basically was there when they called the Section 12 on Karen. So this was Karen left, came back, they called the Section 12 on Karen. This was after John was taken to the hospital. Karen was distraught and upset. Cross-examination. It was really sort of just like, what was Karen saying? Like, what were you saying? What was Karen saying? Daniel Whitley came on, who was also a paramedic, where he said that the roads were probably not plowed because he was sliding and skidding on the road and it did not look like the roads were treated. So this is leading me to like having so many questions about were the roads plowed or not? Was Fairview Road plowed or not? We need this information. I just feel like the paramedics is dragging on and on and on, and it's giving us more questions. And I feel like the jury is kind of like, oh yeah, we get it. We can move on and we can learn more now. Please give us more now, because that's how I feel. And I'm not a lawyer. I am treating this as if I was part of the jury and I have questions, but I get to do a little bit more research. Karen was basically put into an ambulance with 3 grown men telling her that she needs to go to the hospital for a psych evaluation. Hi, Raylene. What's going on? Good morning. And I don't know about you, but if that happened to me, I probably would need a psych eval after I'm being told by three people while in shock of finding one of my loved ones unresponsive, frozen, unconscious, heart not beating in the snow in front of a house of a police officer. I probably would be in shock, and I probably too would be considered someone who needed to be Section 12. And then if I was then approached by multiple men telling me that I am now being Section 12 and I need to be psychologically evaluated, I would probably also act in a way that would continue them having the thoughts of she definitely needs a psych eval because that's crazy. That's insane to me. The paramedic, Daniel Whitley, even said that was it was too much. A Section 12 was too much, too large of a decision for that police officer to make about Karen because he believed it was just quite possibly the natural part of grief. Which I don't even think it was a natural part of grief. I think she was just in shock. I think she was still in the shock of it. She hasn't even started grief yet, the steps of grief, because she does not know. She didn't know at that time if John was going to make it or not. They were still working on him. He was just taken to the hospital. There's no definitive answer if he is alive or dead at this point. So she's freaking out at not knowing. I don't know. There was only like one or two questions about cross-examination for Daniel Whitley, and that was medical history of Karen, and what came out to be multiple sclerosis. I don't know if Karen has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I don't know if her mother has been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I don't know if it was like a thought that maybe was in her medical history that maybe she did have multiple sclerosis. I am not sure. I'm going in this with the same mindset as a juror. I don't know if Karen has multiple sclerosis or not. All we know is that it was told to a paramedic that part of her medical history was multiple sclerosis. Then we had Jason Beaker, who I mean, got a little tight, got a little energy in cross-examination when it came to the alcohol or drugs question. So the paramedics, obviously, if you ever deal with paramedics, they're going to ask you, have you taken any drugs or alcohol? And they're clearly referring to in the very recent past, with the last hour or two, or maybe 6 hours or something like that. They're not asking if you had any drugs or alcohol a week ago, obviously. That is a pretty well assumption that can be made. The paramedic did not specify the time frame of which the question was being asked about when it came to Karen and her sort of like panic anxiety that she was in that led her to a Section 12. But there was no smell of alcohol. So this paramedic testified in a court of law that he did not smell alcohol on Karen Reed. Alcohol was a big topic of discussion pre-trial, where if she was tested when she got to the hospital, that her BAC would be a much higher when John was actually like injured and fell into the snow or fell on the ground, and then it started snowing. And so there were talks of her being like 0.08 when she made it to the hospital. And then quite possibly when John was injured being like a 0.23, like in that insane, like really, 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 really drunk, like way, like there's no way you would even be able to drive a car drunk. Like you couldn't stand up drunk, a 0.23. We have seen Karen. She is not, she is of average height and weight. She is, I mean, I would probably honestly say under average weight when it comes to her. She is quite slender, so I think a 0.23 would really debilitate her in her ability of getting home and being able to crash on a couch and not crash her car anywhere. knowing what keys to use at 0.23 is kind of crazy. That's a lot. That's really, really drunk. So there's going to be a lot of alcohol conversation I can feel soon. Maybe they're going to call some of the doctors, some of the nurses. I don't know. There's so many witnesses. But that was it. So let's jump into day 5. Let me pull this up and we will get started. I have my earbud in a different ear. I'm just trying to balance it out a little bit. Just trying to balance it out. All right, let's pull this up and let's get started.
When it's open, you may be seated. 22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I, counsel, identify?
Adam Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson for Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your
For
Honor.
sure.
Elizabeth Little, also for Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
And good morning, David Yannetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Tinetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed. All right, counsel wanted to see me?
I did, Your Honor. Judge, as I indicated in an email that I sent to your clerk last night and
All right.
copied to Commonwealth.
I have not seen the email.
Okay, well, I'll explain what was in it. Essentially, I was alerting the court that I would like to be heard prior to the start of testimony today because since Katie McLaughlin testified on Thursday and Friday, we received a deluge of photographs that put her with Caitlin Albert on many different occasions after they graduated high school. We received information from their high school yearbook that they were more than just acquaintances in high school. They were teammates on the track team. And even after I sent that email with the photographs that I attached to it, late last night, we received another photo where Katie McLaughlin and Caitlin Albert are standing next to each other in a photo at a baby shower in June of 2021, about 8 months before John O'Keefe's death. It's very clear to us that Katie McLaughlin perjured herself. And I wanted to discuss the issue of the admissibility of not only the photographs that we're now providing that we just received over the weekend, but I also want to resurrect the admissibility of H, I, J, and K for identification. And I think a discussion of this, Your Honor, needs to start with what court orders are currently in place. The leading case with regard to the provision of reciprocal discovery when the defense is offering.
So you want to get back to Rule 14, the Rule 14 issue?
It is a Rule 14 issue.
Okay.
That's supplemented
so, hold on one second. So on top of that, we can discuss this later. I'd like to get the trial started.
That's fine, Your Honor. My belief, my strong belief, is that we need to determine this today. And the reason is that Caitlin Albert is coming up as a witness for the Commonwealth. She faces the same areas of cross-examination that Katie McLaughlin faced, and these photos are relevant to her cross-examination.
Okay. All right. So aside from the Rule 14 issue, I also think this is cumulative. I don't have the email. I do have the photos, but we can address this. When do you expect the Albert? I'm sorry. What's her name?
Caitlin Albert.
Caitlin Albert.
What?
I'd say midweek, probably. It depends on how far we get today.
So we'll address this either today or tomorrow.
Thank you.
Scheduling purposes. So Sergeant Link, is he testifying today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So we need a voir dire of him. I expect that might take a while. Is he testifying this morning, or can we use the lunch break for that? I need to know if it's around 11 o'clock, we'll have a voir dire. I'll just order.
We saw a voir dire with Katie McLaughlin, the girl that the defense attorney was just talking about. That's where the jury leaves, and the judge is able to hear the line of questioning from both sides, the prosecution and defense, to make sure everything's like above board, that they're not going to ask any inappropriate questions or questions that they've already decided inadmissible in court. So that's what the voir dire is, and they are looking for specific things that they can get in, and going over the questions and how they're going to question him, and they just have to clear it first. They got to clear it first. So that's what the voir dire is.
Order coffee. I just need to know about that.
So I anticipate 2 witnesses prior to him. So I can't predict necessarily how long.
How long will you be with those 2 witnesses?
With those 2 witnesses, probably half hour, maybe a little more with each.
Okay. Any idea how long the
I don't
cross will
believe-
be with those witnesses?
Probably, I will handle one of those witnesses. Mr. Giannetti will handle the other, and I would say at least a half an hour on cross-examination, maybe a little bit more.
Okay. Would it be up to an hour on each? I'm just, again, scheduling. I'm not limiting you at all. I'm just curious.
Thank you. I don't think we exceed an hour. I would say safely, I know it's a big range, but between a half an hour and an hour, I think, for each of them.
I
Okay.
think that's probably accurate.
All right. What
It's
can I
hard
say?
to predict. You don't know how tight-lipped the witness is going to be. If they're going to give up the answers or fight you like Katie and just say sure.
All right. Thank you. So we will all set to bring the jurors in?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Jim.
Maybe.
We also have exhibit book 8.
8.
Thank you.
So a bit of an interesting start to the morning. So let me just pause it and talk about it. So the defense was given photos of Katie. We remember Katie. She was the paramedic, the only female paramedic that we've heard from so far. I believe. I might be wrong, but I believe she is the only female paramedic. She was very tight-lipped, and so the conversation of Caitlin Alden came up, and we all kind of were like, wait, why? And then we figured out that Caitlin Alden is the daughter of the homeowner of 34 Fairview. Caitlin Alden is the daughter of the police officer who is the owner of 34 Fairview. Caitlin Alden is the daughter of the police officer of 34 Fairview, and that is the address where John O'Keefe was found, unresponsive, unconscious, beaten, bloodied, lying with his eyes to the sky, covered in snow at around 6 a.m., January 29th. So their friendship is coming into question from the defense to solidify the possibility and the ease of this being a cover-up. From the moment that Katie heard the address that the call was going towards, which was 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts, she knew exactly whose house that was, and she knew exactly what to do, which was to cover it up and to assist and to share that and to... So the friendship was never disclosed throughout the entire investigation. Her friendship with Katie, or her friendship with Caitlin, gosh, there's so many Caitlins, Carries, Karens, Katie. Her friendship with Caitlin was never disclosed throughout the entire investigation. And she has been fighting tooth and nail. And we saw in her testimony that she was switching the word friend to close friend. And it was causing a lot of problems for the defense. They even voir dired her. And even during the voir dire, she was fighting and she was not giving in. She was not answering the questions. the way the defense wanted, the way that we all wanted her to. Because if she does say now that they are close friends or just friends in general, it's going to make all of her other testimony false. Like it's a whole problem. It's a whole down the line issue. And so now that more photos were handed to the defense of Carrie and not Carrie, Caitlin and Katie being close at a baby shower 6 months before John was killed. And then her fighting tooth and nail and saying, well, we're not close friends, even though the question was not if you are close friends. It was just, are you friends? So this is very, ooh. So either today or tomorrow, they're going to talk about it. I'm interested to see that conversation. Let's get a little 1.25 speed happening. If it is a little too fast, we'll go back to 1. All right, the jury is coming in now.
Beverly Canoe, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court in and for the County of Norfolk. So I'm here, give your attendance, you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. You may be seated.
Good morning again, counsel. Good morning again, Ms. Reed.
Good morning, jurors. I have to ask you those same 3 questions, and I appreciate your patience. We had to work out a few things this morning. So was everyone able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone?
Yes.
Everyone said yes and nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? I'm going to ask you if you were able to refrain from seeing or reading or hearing anything about this case since we left the other day.
Yes.
So with that, I'm going to see counsel at sidebar and
Be mindful to step up.
Good morning.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and during the case now and hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Yes, my name is Paul Gallagher, last name Gallagher.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Canton Police Department.
And how long in total have you been a member of the Canton?
Total of 32 years, 2 years as a permanent intermittent officer, 30 years full-time.
And you indicated that you are a lieutenant, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant?
I was promoted to lieutenant August 1st of 2021.
What did you do with Canton Police prior to becoming lieutenant?
I was the detective sergeant from 2018 until I was promoted in 2021.
Okay, what is it, starting with that, what is it that a detective sergeant does?
So when a patrolman takes an initial report, anything that needs follow-up, the detective sergeant makes sure it's assigned to a detective, usually the next detective working, and make sure that all the steps are taken to manage the cases and bring it to fruition, if possible.
And what is it, what are your general duties and responsibilities as a lieutenant with Canton?
Currently, I am in charge of internal affairs, background checks, patrol, and I oversee detectives.
You say currently, what was the problem?
I was promoted in 2021. At that time, Lieutenant Kelleher was the lieutenant in charge of detectives. We have since had a change of police and our assignments have changed.
Were you working with Canton Police on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
I was.
And at some point, did you receive a phone call?
I did.
And about what time was that and who called?
That was shortly after 6 a.m. It was Sergeant Sean Good.
And he's a member of your department as well?
He is. He's the 12 to 8 supervisor, which our shifts actually run 11:45 p.m. to 7:45 a.m., but we call it the 12 to 8 shift.
And what, if anything, was indicated to you in this call from Sergeant Good?
Sergeant Good told me he was responding to a scene where a body was found unconscious, possibly not breathing in the snow. He stated his name was John O'Keefe. He was a Boston police officer who resided on Meadows Ave. He further told me that he had gotten a call earlier about John O'Keefe not returning home that night. His friends had called the hospitals, then they called the police, then they went out and looked for him, and they found him unconscious and not breathing in the snow.
And based on that information, what, if anything, did you?
I told him I would respond.
Where were you initially responding?
I was initially responding to Meadows Ave. I misinterpreted when he said he was a Boston police officer on Meadows Ave. I thought they discovered him on Meadows Ave.
And subsequently, did you learn a different location in response to that location?
I did.
What was that location that you subsequently
Driving around in the snow.
When I called the dispatch to find out the exact address, I was told it was 32 Fairview Road.
32?
Dispatch, is that correct?
That's correct. It was Officer Dever who answered the phone.
That would be Officer Kelly Dever, is that correct?
That's correct.
Not 34, where it actually is.
Or did you go stop somewhere else prior?
I stopped at Canton Police Department prior to that.
And what was the purpose of stopping at Canton Police Department prior to going to Fairview?
I was picking up some winter gear, and I advised Sergeant Good via the radio that all midnight personnel was to be held till further notice.
And you say winter gear, as far as responding to a scene, what, if any, other sort of equipment did you procure when you went to Canton Police?
It was clothing. I needed a winter jacket, hat, things of that nature. I was responding in my personal vehicle.
Oh,
and if you know
okay.
about what time was it that you
It's cold.
arrived?
It's snowing.
on
Blizzard-like
Fairview Road that day?
conditions.
I arrived shortly after 7 a.m.
When did you wake up and
And
show up
when
with
you
the
arrived, what, if
apron?
anything, was it
of
that
your
you
house?
observed upon your arrival?
There were some vehicles pulling away, but parked by where the scene was were 3 Canton police vehicles and 1 black Toyota pickup truck that is assigned to our detectives.
And who, if anyone else from your department was there at that time?
When I arrived, the 3 marked units were occupied by Officer Mullaney, Officer Saraf, Sergeant Good, and the Toyota pickup was driven there by Detective Sergeant Lang.
And as far as
Okay.
by the time you arrived, Mr. O'Keefe is no longer on scene, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what, if any,
So we're missing a little bit of the in-between. So we just finished up paramedics. They said there was like 2 police cars. Now we are kind of skipping a little forward, and there's a lot more activity. This is when John has already been taken to the hospital. Karen is also not here. He said the cars that he saw were all police vehicles.
vehicles or apparatus or any personnel from the fire department were on scene by the time that you arrived?
None.
Now, when you first arrived, who, if anyone, did you first sort of speak with on scene?
I first encountered Sergeant Good.
And you had a conversation with him, is that correct?
That is correct.
And who, if anyone else, did you talk to?
Detective Sergeant Lang joined us as well.
And following these initial conversations with Sergeant Good and Detective Sergeant Lang, what did you do with that?
Once they updated me on the case, we decided that we had to process where Mr. O'Keefe was found. It was snowing heavily. Sometimes the wind was blowing north, sometimes it was south. It was changing directions. And we discussed how to process where Mr. O'Keefe was found, because at the time we had no idea how he came to be where he was.
And with respect to that, first, as far as where Mr. O'Keefe was, who, if anyone, directed you to where Mr. O'Keefe had been prior to your arrival?
When I arrived and I spoke with Sergeant Good and Detective Sergeant Lang, they updated me on the case. They had told me that Mr. O'Keefe was transported to the hospital, that they were doing CPR on him at that time. They told me that he was bleeding from the mouth and nose, and that he may have had swelling above one of his eyes. They told me that They transported his girlfriend as well, and they told me the circumstances surrounding that incident. They told me that at some point after the phone call to the police station, friends, the woman's name was Kerry Roberts, picked up Miss McCabe and John O'Keefe's girlfriend, Karen Reed, and they drove around and they discovered Mr. O'Keefe on the left side of the property. I would call it the east side of the property, unconscious and not breathing in the snow.
Now, this area that Sergeant Good directed you to where he indicated Mr. O'Keefe was, you mentioned that there was snowing heavily at the time, is that correct?
It is correct, yes.
And about how much snow was on the ground in this area at the time that you initially went over?
I would say at least 4 inches of snow.
Now, with reference to, as far as you mentioned, sort of processing, what, if anything, did you and the other officers do with regard to that scene as far as that was concerned?
So it was a unique scene because of the weather. Sergeant Lang had notified Norfolk County CPAC. He had advised them that.
Sustained.
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question, please?
So Sergeant Lang had reached out to Norfolk County CPAC, correct?
That's correct.
And what is CPAC?
It's the State Police Investigative Unit of the District Attorney's Office, Crime Prevention and Control.
And what, if any,
Hold on. Yes, there was. And it is funny how a lot of these really high profile cases, there will be like name overlaps. And it is really creepy. It is really creepy. Can we just go back to the words that he said so that I can write them down?
District Attorney's Office. That's correct.
I'm gonna I'm gonna put it on normal speed so I can get it. I might have to listen to it twice.
what is CPAC?
It's the State Police Investigative Unit of the District Attorney's Office, Crime Prevention and Control.
Investigative unit
What, if any,
of district
as far as that notification is concerned,
attorney's
what is sort of a
office.
protocol when you have
What?
and what, if any, as far as that notification is concerned, and
Investigative Unit of the District.
Okay.
what is
I got the first half.
It's the State Police Investigative Unit of the District Attorney's Office, Crime Prevention and Control.
Crime prevention
And,
and control.
what, if any, as far as that notification is concerned, what is sort of a
that acronym?
protocol
That is
when you
not an
have,
acronym. Like just
an unintended death?
it's the worst.
So when we have an unintended death, the Norfolk County CPAC unit
That was awful.
responds and takes jurisdiction. In this particular case, Mr. O'Keefe was still alive. So they declined to respond at that time.
There may be a term that's pretty well understood, but when you say unattended death, what do you mean?
That's a mouthful.
An unexplained death, a person who was alone at the time of their death.
And so
They
at
weren't
this
alone at
point,
the time.
no one from state
You just
police
said
had
investigate, get
responded or
enough.
was responding to the scene at that point.
That is correct.
And so what, if anything, did you and the other officers do with regard to the scene where Mr. O'Keefe had been located in the snow?
So we decided on how we were going to process the area. Our concern was there were some light pink spots in the snow, and we thought it may be blood. So we were discussing how to get to that, uncover the blood safely. We decided we were going to process the scene with a leaf blower. I figured we could direct the snow off the area in a controlled fashion. At that time, Sergeant Good volunteered to go get a snow blower. But what I told him in the meantime, I wanted to photograph the area. I wanted all the cruisers away from the house. There was one cruiser, I believe, occupied Officer Sarif directly in front of where Mr. O'Keefe was. I wanted him backed up. And there was crime scene tape set up, and it was blowing wildly in the wind. It was serving no purpose at that time. There were no civilians or witnesses about.
There were.
And I knew we had 2 officers who could protect the scene while we processed it. So Sergeant Good, before he left to get the leaf blower, he directed the officers to move their cruisers. I told Sergeant Lang the most important thing he could do at this time would.
Objection.
Right.
The objection sustained. Move on to your next question, Mr. Lally.
No, don't move on because we have a lot to talk about. That was massive. What all the words he just said literally made my skin crawl. So they saw light pink spots in the snow. So this remember when the leaf blower came up from that one young cop that was talking about it, or the paramedic? I can't remember who exactly. Remember when the leaf blower came up? We're getting a little bit more information about that. Okay. So State Police Investigative Unit of the District Attorney's Office, Crime Prevention and Control. They said, no, he's not dead. We're not coming out. Cool. That's fun. They just didn't want to go out in the snow. That's me assuming. That's an allegation. They saw light, so he saw light pink spots in the snow, and he was like, we have to investigate this crime scene, which he considered at that point to be like probably the maybe the 10 by 10 square foot radius of where John was found, because we have yet to hear anything about, I don't know, the home, the house behind him, I don't know, where humans lived, just so happened to be police officers, and we have yet for him to say that it was actually 34 Fairview Road and not 32, even though he was given the wrong address twice. Okay. There was crime scene tape blowing all around, and they had to move all the cruisers, and they're going to use the leaf blower. What? They're going to use a leaf blower to keep the snow away and blow the snow away. I don't know. I don't know if oh God, that just sounds so dumb. And I don't know if it's like hindsight 2020, or it was just an easy way to look like they're doing something, but to actually ruin everything about a crime scene by blowing it all around with a leaf blower. I don't know. But all I do know is that is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard a police officer come up with. One of the absolute worst is a leaf blower in a blizzard. A leaf blow.
You mentioned that there was
Shut
some
up.
crime scene tape that was set up around. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And how was that accomplished?
Sergeant Good and my Detective Sergeant Lang.
Yeah,
put out
adding
crime
more
scene
wind. There's
tape.
already a wind problem. Why add
You know
more?
what, if anything, they were able to use to attach it to in order to set it up around where they're still keeping them found?
I believe they used a fire hydrant, a tree, a flagpole, and I'm not sure what else. I don't recall specifically what it was attached to.
And with regard, you mentioned there were photographs that were taken prior to the implementation of a leaf blower. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I could just ask a little bit about that. As far as the leaf blower was concerned, why was that a decision as far as that being an implement to use in this particular scene?
It was a unique scene. There was snow. I had never processed a scene in the snow. I had seen a leaf blower used in the snow, and it's quite effective at being controlled. So that's why it was readily accessible. The scene was debilitating as we were on scene with the weather. Snow was piling up, and I thought that was the best method at that time.
And prior to the arrival of Sergeant Good back to the scene with the leaf blower, what, if anything else, was done to sort of document the scene at that time?
Stop saying leaf
In
blower,
addition to
because
photographs, what we
any
did
jurors
was,
are like me,
I wasn't sure
they're
how
getting turned
the
off
roadway
by it.
ended. I wasn't sure if there was a sidewalk, a curb, a berm, or whether it was just grass, excuse me. So Sergeant Lank and I dug out what I believe is called a 6-inch Cape Cod asphalt berm, exposed it so we could get a better perspective of how far Mr. O'Keefe might have been off the roadway.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
With a leaf blower? Please have the leaf blower. And just start blowing everything in the courtroom around. Is this helpful? Is this helpful? The defense comes up with the leaf blower. Is this helpful for the scene? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He's seen it used before.
Direct your attention what's currently marked as exhibit 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Please review them yourself. Look up.
Okay.
He's like, what? You want me to look at so much? I would have immediately forgotten the numbers that he just told me to look at and just start going through the binder one by one. I would have immediately forgotten. He's seen a snowblower used before. I don't think a snowblower is a great way. I don't see it working out in the way that they think
Your
it does.
Honor, may we approach this briefly?
Sure.
I just put bagel in my mouth. No. This is the most fantastic thing. Yeah, it does look like a gas mask. That is the court reporter. So it is a verbal, audible reporting instead of the keypads, instead of like the really fun court reporter classic like 12 button keypads. So she's able to speak right into it and no one can hear. It's like completely soundproof, like suctions against her mouth. It's actually really crazy. I think it has a higher percentage of correctness. Like I think it's like more correct, it's more reliable. And I think it's just easier for some. I honestly think it's if the court is going to approve the purchase of it, I think it's up to like the court reporter's preference.
Mr. Lally, hold on for a second.
No, I'll see counsel again at sidebar on this issue.
But yeah, I think it might just be what she prefers to use, and the court, purchased it for her. I don't know if she is speaking shorthand. Like she might be speaking shorthand as well into it. It would make sense that she is, especially when it comes to like the witness and the attorney speaking over each other. But yeah, it's the court reporter, which is crazy. I've never seen it used. A lot of people in a lot of courts still use the physical typewriter, keyboard, whatever they're called. But yeah, it looks super cool. It looks super cool. I want to ask her a question.
Yes.
Tell me about it. I'll look it up for more like the name of it.
Jurors, I had told you before how important it is that our record is clear, and that's why I'm sort of making this take longer than it would otherwise. So,
stenographers are unsung heroes. Yes, they really are. Hi, Desmond. I think her and the judge are also really close. To me, it seems like they probably worked together for a really long time, because when she asks her
Mr.
a
Lally,
question,
can you simply hand her a note telling her what numbers?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm just writing.
the
numbers.
court
Thank you
reporter
very
will like
much.
just look at her and like be all wide-eyed, and she'll be like, okay. Like I think they're legitimately friends from the way like the body language and like the conversations that they've had so far and how they just look at each other. She'll just turn around and be like, it's really funny. I like watching them. They're probably like besties. Like the sign language interpreters, yeah. But this when you get like one that doesn't know
So I would
sign
ask that the
language.
next 13 exhibits be marked. The next 13 photographs in the book be marked as the next 13 exhibits.
Okay.
But she has to she's doing a lot of work. So she's handling for the most part the reassigning of evidence, like numbers. Like she's going through and reorganizing everything, because she's like, this is ridiculous for me, this is ridiculous for my staff, this is going to be the worst thing ever for the jury to go through when they are looking for a piece of evidence and it's like number 674, but it's like the fourth piece of evidence from the case. They're like, well, I want to go back and look at this one thing from like day 4, but it's numbered like 273. It's a lot of work. She's taking on a lot of responsibility in this courtroom. But yeah, I think there's a good friendship between her and the judge. She'll just be looking at her just like, okay. All right, let's boot, scoot, and boogie through. I do appreciate the judge going through and making sure all of this is reorganized easily for the jury, because it will just speed the whole process along for deliberation if they need to look at anything. Oh my goodness, they're really taking their time. Off to be the witness sitting on the stand watching this happen. Like, I don't want to be here.
If you could enlarge that just a bit.
All right, let's get going.
I would say I don't believe that's the first photograph for you, but if you could locate that within.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Another theme of this trial is the lowest quality of photos ever made. And that looks like something from the 1930s. That from 2022.
What, if anything, we're looking at in this?
So that is in front of 34 Fairview Road in Canton. It's looking westerly, or the direction towards Chapman Street, and it's documenting the conditions at the time.
May I approach the witness, John?
Yes.
Mr. Senator, at any points you ask? This is a rated
westerly.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photograph, please.
Mm-hmm. Exhibit 608, 609, 6 times. That's too many exhibits. Another super low
that
quality
is simply
grainy
documenting
photo.
that the number 34 is on the mailbox. That is 34 Fairview Road.
Do you have a number on that in front of you?
Yes, I do. It's exhibit 22.
Thank you.
There are 2 of these, I believe, or similar. I just want to make sure I have the correct one.
I'm glad that we have photos showing the number of the house, because police documents seem to have been confused about what number house they were being
What's
called.
depicted in that photograph, sir, is that a fair and accurate portrayal?
Why? We don't have an answer as to why.
When you arrived that morning.
It is. It's the mailbox with the number 34 on it, and it shows 2 vehicles in the driveway of 34 Fairview Road.
If you say so.
And,
But I said
still in the
3
next
vehicles.
photograph.
I said 2 back to back and 1 on the other side. Or was I wrong?
If you could, Lieutenant, when you locate this, indicate which exhibit we're looking at in this one.
That's exhibit 28. It's a different angle of the driveway showing the 3rd car in the driveway. I wanted to document what was in the driveway that time.
I always thought it would be cool to go take the courses
Next photograph.
to be a court reporter. And there's so many different types of them. There's not just one type that's really cool. It's it's such a specific
Exhibit
technique.
29.
See, I'm seeing 3 cars.
It documents the same
2
thing.
and then a third.
The
What are we
entirety of the
talking about?
house
2
from
cars.
I guess it would be a westerly view, and the 3 cars that were in the driveway at the time I arrived.
And the next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
Was it 2 cars? Was it 3 cars? Was it 2 women? Was it 3 women? It literally looks like this was taken on a flip phone. And I get that it's being on a screen and then we're, live, but come on. That's a terrible
I believe
photo.
That's exhibit 31. And it's a close-up of where Mr. O'Keefe was found. And you can see the very light pink spotting that we thought may be blood. And there was an object in the center as well,
What's the object?
which we didn't know what it was at that time.
What did it turn out to be?
Subsequent, did you learn what that object was?
Yes,
What did you learn?
it was a broken clear cocktail glass,
Broken,
and the pink
clear
spot was
cocktail.
frozen or coagulated blood.
And the next photograph is coming.
Who put the glass
That's
back
exhibit
together?
23. And it's basically showing that the scene was trampled by rescue workers, witnesses, et cetera, but you could still see, the pink spotting in the area where Mr. O'Keefe was.
So was he
As
on
far as
snow?
footprints within the snow that you observed,
Under.
you indicated that the scene was trampled or walked over by first responders, correct?
Correct.
And the footprints that you observed, what footprints did you, so what areas around where Mr. O'Keefe's, where it was indicated to you that Mr. O'Keefe's body was, where those footprints located?
They were located between the street and where Mr. O'Keefe was found.
And as far as between
Makes
where
sense.
Mr. O'Keefe was found and the house of residence at 34 Fairview, what, if any, footprints did you observe in that area?
I didn't observe any footprints at that time.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for the next photograph, please.
Sorry, I need to hear that question again.
In that area.
I didn't observe
House of residence.
was found.
And as far as between where Mr. O'Keefe was found and the house of residence at 34 Fairview, what, if any, footprints did you observe in that area?
I didn't observe any footprints at that time.
Did you look?
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for the next photograph, please.
Did you look for the footprints between John and the house, or did you just not see them? Did you run the leaf blower over the top levels of snow, the top
That
layers
is
of snow, to
exhibit
see if there were any
24.
footprints?
And it's showing
That's what you did for the crime scene?
westerly shot of the scene. Still found in this area here, and it depicts the wind blowing in that direction at the time.
And probably pretty self-evident, but depicts the wind blowing in that direction based on what?
The flag flying.
The next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
What is that?
That is exhibit 20. That is the I believe it's called a 6-inch Cape Cod asphalt berm that separated the roadway from the property of 34 Fairview. And this is the long look to where Mr. O'Keefe was discovered.
That's
The,
6 feet
next
long.
photograph, Ms. Gilman.
You uncovered all 6 feet of it? I need more information about these photos. I can't see crap. Tell me more.
Again, that's a close-up of one of the exhibits we saw earlier. Again, you can see the spotting and the glass here.
Can you?
This is, I believe this is exhibit 26.
Did he have glass cuts on him?
So, next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
This is exhibit 27, and it's some, what we believed was frozen or coagulated blood spotting.
Next photograph, Ms. Gilman.
And that's a different view, close-up of the scene, and that's exhibit 32.
I would say, like, I'm sorry for the graphic images, but it literally just looks like dirty, like icy
That's
water.
when we first
Like, it
uncovered
doesn't-
the berm, the 6-inch berm. And
6
it's just
inch
a
or 6 foot?
smaller picture, close-up of that berm. It's exhibit 25.
Okay.
Reference
That's
to the sort of uncovering of the berm as you've described it, what, if anything, did you use to uncover the berm?
I believe we just used our foot to uncover that.
And what I believe is the last photograph.
Was it? So you were just kicking
This
stuff
is
around in the
the
crime scene?
location from the berm
You're using a
to where
leaf
Mr.
blower,
O'Keefe
so
was found. It's just a long view, and it's Exhibit 21.
May I approach Your Honor, just
Yes, yes. Tori.
probably her coffee order. Judge was handing off her coffee order, I'm sure. I don't know. It was probably an important note,
Now,
but she
as
mentioned
far as-
ordering coffee earlier. Because I'm going to need to order coffee. Like I'll say,
the.
because what the hell is
Again,
going
police
on?
department, what if any sort of recording equipment are they equipped with?
They're with dash cameras, watch guard cameras.
Did anyone
And
have
have-
body cam?
What, if anything, have you done to review some of that dash camera footage from that?
I've reviewed all of it.
And specifically, have you reviewed dash camera footage from the 683 cruiser, Officer Sarah's cruiser?
Yes, I did.
And
Officer Seraph was the very first police officer that took the stand. And I don't like him. I didn't like him. I wasn't comforted by his words. I wasn't made more confident
Your Honor, if I
Karen did
may,
it by what he said.
I would ask that it's already been marked as Exhibit 12. I would ask that a portion of that be played for the jury at this time.
Okay.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could fast forward this to approximately 57 minutes or so into the. Kind of gal, can you recognize what's up on the screen in Exhibit 12? And what do you recognize?
That's the video I referred of Canton Cruiser 683 on, it's dated January 29th, 2022 at 7, if the time is correct, 7:02:54.
And around this time, within this video from Officer Sarah's cruiser, what, if anything, did you observe occurring within that cruiser camera?
I believe it's at approximately 57:17. You'll see Sergeant Good begin to mark out the scene with a yellow crime scene tape. You'll see him in front of the cruiser at first. Him, Officer Mullaney, and Sergeant Lank walk off, and then you'll see Sergeant Good stretching out the crime scene tape.
And if you could, sir, as the video is playing, using the laser pointer that you have before you, just draw the jury's attention to who, if anyone, you observe or recognize within that video.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could.
How much time
See,
after John O'Keefe went to the hospital to finally mark out a crime scene?
There's two officers with yellow crime scene tape. I believe this is Officer Mullaney, but I'm not sure. I know this is Sergeant Good.
And my apologies, Ms. Gilman, if you could play again.
That's Detective Sergeant Lank in the lighter coat. Sergeant Good and Lank, they walk off camera. You'll see Sergeant Good come into the picture right here. And stretching out the crime scene tape. You can see it flapping in the wind there. See it raise way up because of the wind.
Is this before or after the leaf blower?
This is the crime scene tape here. And I'm not sure what they affixed it to, whether it was the cruiser at that point or not.
Is the leaf blower part of their everyday
But you
carry,
can
like
see the crime scene tape going across the scene that way.
shotgun, rubber bullets, leaf blower in the trunk?
Ms. Gilman, if you could pause it right there for a moment. So Lieutenant Gallagher, in addition to sort of the crime scene tape that you observed in this video, what, if anything else, did you get from the station to attempt to sort of secure the scene or place at the scene?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you get a tent at the station?
Excuse me?
A tent at the station?
Tent?
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
No.
And why not?
I had a tent with me from home. It was a personal 8x8 tent at that time.
I apologize. And so at any point in time on the scene, were you able to set up that tent that you retrieved from your home?
Due to the weather conditions, we did not set it up because it would have required officers holding it down, and we didn't think the top would stay on.
And again, maybe pretty self-evident, but when you say due to the weather conditions, what, if anything, about the weather conditions prevented
Those are
you
light
from setting
conditions.
that tent up always?
There was high winds, shifting directions, a large amount of snow falling.
Ms. Gilman, if I could ask, if you could just pull forward in that video to about the 1 hour, 7 minute mark. Yeah, you could hit play on that.
Officer Staroff
What, if
needs some
anything,
new
were we
windshield
looking at in this
wipers.
portion?
If you look closely, it's the crime scene tape that's blowing around.
If you look closely at this lowest quality video ever produced
Right now,
from
you
the
can't
Canton
see
Police
it.
Department.
Or I cannot see it from here.
Is this around the point where the decision was made to take that down? Is that correct?
It was later on, I observed the same thing, and I told the officers it wasn't doing any good at that time. And there were nobody to keep out of the scene at that point. It was only police personnel on scene.
Which is funny
Thanks.
because there's people in the
Ms.
house.
Gilman, you can stop and take it down. Thanks.
People inside that house. First responder inside that house.
Now, with reference to the implementation of the leaf blower,
Did they even knock
was
on
that
the door?
memorialized in any way as well?
Yes,
Hey,
I
you know
had
there's a
Sergeant Good
there's a half
take a
dead body on your
video
yard?
since we were improvising using something I wasn't familiar with being used before. In case there were any questions on how it was deployed, I had Sergeant Good take a short video.
And there's sort of several different short video clips of that process. Is that fair to say?
There's at least one that I know of.
May I approach?
Yes.
She's like, I thought this was going to take 30 minutes. If I knew nothing about this case and all I had was undated photo/video, you'd have a hard time convincing me this didn't happen in the early 2000s. I know that the quality is just so bad. So bad. And where's the body cam footage? You're telling me in 2022 officers weren't wearing body cams here? I thought that was like a nationwide thing that was happening, that all officers were wearing body cams. My little town, officers are wearing body cams everywhere they go. I can know everyone's steward's coffee order.
I don't recognize it. I haven't seen this disc before.
It's all on body cam. Also, just the activities alone, like, you knew the crime scene tape was going to be flying around. You knew it was windy. Like, you knew what was going to happen. You've worked. To say that you've never worked a case in the snow is crazy to me. As a veteran officer, detective, lieutenant, sergeant, whatever you are in the Northeast, in the Boston area. um, that's wild to me. You've never worked a case with snow involved at all. That's kind of wild to me. Also, you've never worked a case in windy conditions. You knew the crime scene tape was going to be going around. Anyhow.
May we approach?
Okay.
Such a mess. Such a mess. It's giving like, but we're just a small town, like, you know, we're not big town police, but like y'all are, you know, y'all are. They're directly south of Boston, like they're so close to Boston. There's no excuse for being this bad at your jobs. It just feels very much, but we never done it before. And we don't know. So we just got a leaf blower. You know, it just feels very much like we're just baby police officers. We don't know what we're doing. We didn't knock on the door. We didn't get a search warrant for the house. We didn't ask the neighbors in the entire neighborhood for Ring doorbell footage of that night. You know, we didn't watch the car travel throughout the entire town, and you know, we didn't do any of that. We didn't investigate. We didn't invest. We don't. It was a guy in the snow. We put the crime scene tape up. What do you want? It was blowing around everywhere. Like, it's giving that very much. But at the same time, they want to be like the big city. Like, what's a Ring doorbell? What's video footage? If they probably would have been so butthurt if they saw Ring doorbell footage that was higher quality than their dash cam footage in blizzard-like conditions. And to me, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it was always blizzard-like conditions that night. I think it was like on and off blizzard-like conditions, because it looks like it was just kind of like snow. But there are moments where it's like, oh wow, what is that? I don't like that sound. All right, we're gonna pop into 1.25
Okay.
speed because Lolly is, like I said the other day, a paced dog. He's paced himself out. He said this was gonna take half an hour, and I call him a liar about that. About that.
My apologies, Your Honor. May we approach this speaker?
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stay.
Yeah, stretch. Take a stretch break. These jurors are like, what are we doing here, folks? What are we doing here? All right. That is Karen Reed herself. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's a good time to talk about her body language. There are a few witnesses where when it does kind of shift to her, she is given the stare down. In Karen's face, I see like exhaustion and disappointment. That's what I see. Or if that means anything to anyone. I see exhaustion and disappointment.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Another picture. Oh, hell yeah.
And Lieutenant Gallagher, do you recognize what's up on screen?
I do.
And what do you recognize?
It's me operating the leaf blower and at the scene where General Keefe was discovered.
And who is operating the leaf blower in these videos?
I am.
And who, if anyone else from your department, is sort of present while this process is going?
Detective Sergeant Lank is documenting, and Sergeant Good is also assisting.
And Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. If you could just play and run.
You see, it removes the snow. I was removing the snow layer by layer. And right here, you can see it exposing the cocktail glass. You're going to see red spots appear as I remove it layer by layer. These pink spots start to turn to be dark red spots. As you see, we can control it. We were concerned with whatever other.
Oh, hold on and wait for a question.
As you can see, it just takes it layer by layer.
Hold on for a second. Mr. Lally, Ms. Gilman, can you pause it? So if you have a question for the lieutenant, all right, you're asking him to narrate the whole thing. We're not going to do it that way. And you can pause and then question. It's great you're keeping your voice up over the sound of the leaf blower, but it's a little distracting.
I understand now.
So do you have a question, Mr. Lally?
Just briefly at this point, so Lieutenant Gallagher, with respect to as you're conducting this whole process, what if anything are you concerned about as far as throughout this process of trying to locate evidence?
We
You
were
need to
concerned with the weather
process.
destroying biological
You need to
evidence at that time.
And so what if anything were you doing with regard?
We were trying to take the snow that had fallen over the blood, and we were trying to remove it to expose the blood.
And fair to say, as far as during this sort of removal process, how much of the snow were you able to sort of sift layer by layer with the leaf blower that you had?
We could control how much I wanted to sift. I did it I started out as gently as possible, and if it needed, more snow needed to be removed, I got a little more aggressive.
Thanks. Ms. Gilman, if you could, good one.
Yeah. I'm processing. It's got pen on my arm.
And the next video, Nick.
All right, just pause. Let's just take a moment. Let's just take a moment. Okay. So John was, I believe, over 6 feet tall. The distance between that officer and the end of the snowblower, way less than 6 feet. I would not say that this is, from what we just saw, as terrible as I was expecting, but I would definitely not say it was good. How close he had to get to where some spots of pink were, you are also then adding more trampling spots to the other parts of the crime scene. I think it would have been better, I don't know, maybe if the cops that arrived on the scene initially did a better job of capturing the crime scene the moment John was lifted up and put onto the stretcher. I think, and I understand that there was weather, and I understand that there was a miscommunication about address, right? For some, it's a miscommunication. Gross. That was... Where's his phone? And where's the red taillight pieces?
Ms. Gilman, if you could play the third video, please.
Really? How are 3 cops going to improve a leaf blower? You get 3 edits in a room. No, I'm just kidding. What are you doing? Did you just touch it with your glove or the winter glove? I am so... You're telling me you live in Massachusetts where snow like this is normal and there's not a protocol, like a standard for snow? Has science not gotten to that point? Do we not do officers, investigators not have standards or protocols when it comes to snow? I don't know if a leaf blower is, because I don't know. I just still have questions about this. And if all those dark spots are blood, these guys are quiet. If all those dark spots are blood, what the hell happened here? I don't think that's helping the prosecution by saying he hit him.
Thanks. Lieutenant, with reference to that process.
That was like a whole
how far
scene.
into
That was
the
like
snow were you able to go with
blood
using that leaf
everywhere.
blower in that manner?
We got almost to the ground, bare ground.
As far as sort of a surface area, like how much of that area where Mr. O'Keefe was found were you able to use the leaf blower on?
It was approximately a 6x6, 7x7 type area.
And from that area, what, if anything, in addition to the cocktail glass pieces that you already testified to and the red spots on the ground, what, if anything else, did you observe?
We didn't observe anything at that point. Anything else? Just the blood in the glass.
just the blood in the glass. No
Lieutenant, during the
phone,
time
no
that you were on scene,
red taillight pieces,
with reference to the neighborhood in general,
blood in the glass.
how many people did you observe sort of come out of their house at any point in time that you were there?
I didn't observe anybody ever come out of their house.
And that includes the residents that you're in front of, as well as any other residences along that street, is that correct?
That is correct.
Nobody.
Now,
came
at
out
some
of the
point,
house. Anywhere that they saw.
about how long a period of time, if you know, were you on scene that particular morning?
Approximately 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes.
And following that, where did you go?
We brought the exhibits back to Canton Police Headquarters.
And by that, you mean the glass and what you would collect of the blood?
Yep, we took 6 blood samples, yes.
And how were you able
Okay.
to sort of collect the blood samples on scene?
Well, blood samples, because they were frozen, we debated on how to collect it. We didn't think swabbing was going to be easy to do if it was frozen. So we decided on finding some type of temporary plastic evidence container. We were able to find large cups, and we took 6 samples. We bagged the 6 samples, and Sergeant Lang transported them back to Canton Police Headquarters.
And
What
with
kind of
respect to
cups?
those
Where would they
samples
come
and,
from?
piece of glass that you located, eventually, what, if anything, was done with those? Well, first and foremost, when you came back to Canton Police Station, what, if anything, did you do with them?
Chief Berkowitz was at headquarters, and we had a meeting in the detective sergeant's office.
What I'm asking, sir, is with reference to those items that you took back from Fairview, when you got back to the station, what, if anything, did you do?
Sergeant Lang placed them into evidence.
And then subsequent to Sergeant Lang placing them into evidence at some point, where did they go?
They were turned over on February 1st to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab.
And was that something where they were driven to the crime lab, or did the crime lab come to the station?
The crime lab was already at the station.
Now, you go back to the police station and have some conversation with your chief, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what was your chief's name?
Chief Berkowitz, Kenneth Berkowitz.
Berkowitz.
And following that conversation, at some point, did you return to Fairview Road that morning?
I did.
And who, if anyone, did you go there with?
I accompanied Detective Sergeant Lang.
And when you arrived, where did you go with reference to residents?
We went into a side door, and there were people in the kitchen at that time. I believe it was the kitchen area.
And did you know any of the people that were in the kitchen? Who, if anyone, did you know?
Who I remember specifically was Jen McCabe, who I don't know personally, but I know because that's who Sergeant Lang arrived to talk to, and I knew Brian Albert in a professional sense.
And so Brian Albert is also a police officer, is that correct?
He was a Boston police officer, yes.
Now, as far as any other people, who, if anyone else, were you introduced to when you came into the kitchen area?
I wasn't introduced to anybody. All I know is there were 5 or 6 people there.
And are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of Brian Higgins?
I am.
How are you familiar with him?
He is an ETF agent who I've worked with when I was assigned to DEA, and he later had a satellite office at our PD, and I have since come to know him personally.
And in reference to your work with the DEA, how long did you work with the DEA?
13 years.
And so, Mr. Higgins, was he present in the home on Fairview when you arrived there that morning?
I don't recall him. When I arrived originally, definitely not. I don't recall if he was there when we arrived about 9 a.m.
So you don't recall him being there at all?
I don't recall specifically. I never had any conversation with him.
Now, you had made some mention of February 1st, a few days later, at your department, there were members from the crime lab that came, correct?
That is correct.
And what, if anything, did they come there to do?
They were assisting the state police in executing a search warrant on a motor vehicle.
And where was that
34
motor vehicle in relation to your department?
It was in our Sallyport.
If you could just describe to the jury, so what is Sallyport, specifically the Canton Police, like where is it located, what does it look like?
Sure. It's on the rear portion of our police department. They are large overhead doors that are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. We only have 2 bays. So the Sallyport that the vehicle was in, typically we enter through door 4, and you would exit through door 3. Those doors, overhead doors, can only be controlled by a computer in the dispatch center, and it's where we bring in our prisoners. Once the Sally Port goes up, you enter, close the door, the area is secure. The rest of the PD is only accessible by access card, key access card.
As you mentioned, sort of the overhead garage doors are accessible only by the dispatch area, is that correct?
That is correct, a computer in the dispatch area.
And then as far as entrance from the department, how if at all is that controlled?
There is a, to the right of Sally Port 4, there is a key card access door.
Now, with reference to that Sally Port area, what if any cameras are located in that area?
I know there's cameras in the area. I don't specifically know where they are. I typically don't look for them. I know it is under surveillance, as most of our department is.
And have you reviewed
Yep.
at least portion or the entirety of the Sally Port video from that particular day of February 1st?
I've seen a small portion, yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Do you recognize what's depicted on that particular flash drive?
Yes,
And what is depicted on that, sir?
CPD Sally Port videos.
And I'll call the seat to introduce in a minute the next exhibit.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
This is a lot longer than a half an hour, Mr. Lally. Mr. Lally. And we are on 1.25 feet, I believe. So that's interesting. He's like, what do you guys know what time is?
Seek to publish a portion of exhibit 34 for sure.
Okay.
I have one
See
moment,
what
Your
we
Honor.
got now.
So, Ms. Gilman, if I could have a portion that's February 1st, that covers 12 a.m. to 12 noon.
12 a.m. to 12 noon. All right, come on, guys. Get your evidence together. We have this jury's like, what is happening? What is going on? What do you mean that video and photo
2-1 bottom.
is
Yeah.
the lowest of quality ever made? What do you mean? And there has not been mention of the red taillight pieces that were found at the scene. How come nobody out of all the people, paramedic, original officers, second round of officers, never found any taillight? They never found any taillight. They never found any taillight. How is it possible for no one to see any taillight, feel any taillight, hear the crunch of any taillight under the snow, on the snow, in the road, as they're blowing the snow, their leaf blowing the snow away, and there's no taillight?
Ms. Gilman, if I could
No
ask you to
taillight.
just fast forward that to approximately 9:11 a.m.
9/11. I mean, you could at least show the witness. I don't know why we're looking at the back of the defense attorney's heads. Okay, come on.
15-minute recess. Why don't we take our morning recess?
All right, they're taking a little
15-minute
break.
recess.
And you know what? I think I'm going to take a break as well. I think we're going to take a break as well. So I'm going to make sure I mute it for sure this time. We will be back in like 10, 15 minutes. If you are sit like especially like Raylene and Ronnie, if you guys are sitting, I don't know how you I gotta talk to people. How do you sit all day? I can't do this is the hardest part. This is the hardest part is like just sitting for this long. All right, so we're gonna take a break. We're gonna do some stretches. We're gonna go see just how hot my break is at 11. Oh, perfect timing. Great. Well, yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back. Your break's at 11. Oh my god, I love that. You got like 6 minutes. So we'll take a little break, little stretch break. Here, we're back. Sitting sucks. Because you know me, Roddy, what I would do. Ray, you got a stand-up desk? Okay, good. Because I mean, y'all know that I would stand all day long. All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be back 10, 15 minutes. And then we will hopefully get back into some of this court because what is going on? It was supposed to be 30 minutes per side, essentially. What's going on per witness? And we're still, all right. Let me get this sorted. I'm actually just going to put it on 0.5 speed, but we're going to mute it. All right, I'll be back. right, we are back from the break, so let's just do court. All right, we are back from the break, so let's just do court.
Court is in session, please be seated.
Hopefully they have all these tech things sorted out.
All right, are we all set with the screen? Okay.
And again, okay, maybe better with the lights on the structure, maybe a little bit. If we could please put the light back on. We kind of gathered, again, from this video from approximately 9:11 in the morning, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
If you could just, using that laser pointer, direct your attention to what, if anything, significance you observed in this particular positive of this video.
This is our Sally Port. You would come in Sally Port 4, exit Sally Port 3, like I said earlier. This is the vehicle they were executing a search warrant on, and this is the crime scene tape.
And as far as personnel from the state police that were present there, who, if anyone, was present there that you knew or were aware of?
I knew Trooper Proctor was there, and I knew the criminologist was there, and a photographer. I don't know them by name.
So a couple of people from the lab, one taking photos, one criminalist, is that correct?
Correct.
As well as Trooper Proctor?
That's correct.
Did you know Trooper Proctor?
I knew of him. I don't believe I ever met him prior to this. He has worked some cases with our detectives. I knew he was assigned to the DA's office.
What are we even
But
looking at?
I'm not sure if I ever met him prior to this case.
Now, with reference to the vehicle, what, if anything, was placed around the vehicle, or did you observe around the vehicle?
This crime scene tape, as you can see the yellow tape right there.
And just to be clear, the sort of, which part of the
A
vehicle
vehicle?
is sort of in the lower foreground of this vehicle?
This is the passenger side rear of the vehicle.
Wait, can you show me? Show me the.
Now, at some point,
Exhibit.
over the course of the time,
He's
that,
pointed at the
you
passenger
were there
side
on
rear.
February 1st, what, if any, other sort of specialized units within the state police were also?
I'm frustrated.
Eventually, the I think they call it the CARS team. It's the what I would call their, I guess, accident reconstruction team responded.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to fast forward within that video to 9:44. Yeah. That's fine. A little bit left. Right there. If you could just take that. Now, Lieutenant, during this part of the video, in addition to the people that you've already referenced, who, if anyone else, was in the crowd at that time?
It's hard for me to say. I believe this is the criminalist. I believe if this is Trooper Proctor, this is me with the gray shirt, dress shirt, walking in. That's me right there. And that's Trooper Proctor. I believe the photographer or another criminologist is here. I don't know what their title is.
Now, at some point during the execution of this search warrant, what, if any, issues did you become aware of with regard to the criminals?
They were having trouble. They were trying to remove the housing to the taillight, passenger side taillight, and they were having difficulty removing it.
And what, if any, assistance did you offer with regard to that?
I told them that we had an officer working who was in charge of our fleet maintenance and our mobile operations unit who probably had the tools to do it. And he also had vast, extensive experience in auto body.
Who was that, sir?
That's Officer Brian Wanless.
And what, if anything, did you do with reference to Officer Wanless in regard to that area of the car?
I asked dispatch to ask him to return at approximately, I think it was 9:50.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to, not already there, move it up to 9:51 a.m.
So this is the car that was driven around looking for John. This is the
Can you just
trunk,
pause for 1 moment, please?
and it finally made
So
sense
with
once I saw that
reference to,
trunk open. What
This particular
what we
portion
were
of the video
looking
was
at.
If you could direct the jury's attention to when you see Officer Wanless and when you see him come over towards that area of the vehicle, And Ms. Gilman, for your purposes, what I would ask is I would run this from essentially 9:51 a.m. through to about 9:58 and 30 seconds.
And we are still on direct of Paul Gallagher.
This is Officer Wanless right here. He examines it and he leaves momentarily. He dons a pair of gloves. And he exits and he's going to come back with some tools.
Because they can't get it off the tail light off the car.
Here he comes. Places his toolkit on the tailgate.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, pause and ask a question.
And from your review of this video, what, if anything, do you observe Officer Wanless do with reference to that?
Like objection,
Rear
no
passenger
question
side.
pending.
He
Where are you
re-enters
talking?
the sally port and with some tools and he places his toolkit down on the tailgate of the Lexus.
And what, if anything, do you observe him do after that?
He begins to work on the housing of the taillight.
Ms. Gilman, if you could,
Not the best video footage. It keeps like cutting. I don't know if those were intentionally made cuts to the video for time, but it cut out all like the actually getting stuff off and bagging it.
Lieutenant, with respect to the items that you and the other officers recovered from 34th Fairview on the 29th, the criminal list that was depicted in that video is that who you gave those items to?
I believe so, yes.
You gave those items to her directly, correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as that particular, I believe you testified earlier that you were looking to preserve biological matter, is that correct?
Yes.
And fair to say that your search of that area was confined to sort of where it was described to you, Mr. O'Keefe, had been found, correct?
That is correct.
Now, turning back again just to February 1st, I'm sorry to jump around, but back to February 1st, at some point you mentioned there was a crash reconstructionist from the state police, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what, if anything, did you aid or assist or facilitate with reference to crash reconstructionist around the police station?
When they wanted to test the vehicle, I secured the parking lot. I advised no cruisers to return to the station, and I blocked the entryway with my marked cruiser and remained in my cruiser.
And later on that day, February 1st, where, if anywhere, did you go with respect to the crash reconstruction?
We went to 34 Fairview.
In addition to yourself and the trooper from the crash reconstruction, who, if anyone else, went with you?
Trooper Proctor was present.
And
Doctor.
why did you go along with the troopers to that location?
Just so there was a Canton officer present. If any residents came out, I could communicate with them.
And to your knowledge, had Trooper Proctor been to Fairview prior to that date?
I have no knowledge if he had been there or not.
What, if anything, did you direct either Trooper Proctor or the crash reconstructionist to once you were on scene?
I brought him to the area of where Mr. O'Keefe was found.
You showed them where Mr. O'Keefe was found?
Yes.
Now, turning your attention to, well, one on scene that day with Trooper Proctor and the crash reconstructionist, what, if anything, did you observe them to be doing?
I believe they were discussing, they were trying to place a drone up in the air, I believe, to map out the area.
Objection.
Did you see that? Or do you want me to strike the, I believe they were trying to?
That'd be out.
All right, so that will be stricken, but your observation will remain.
Now, with reference, if I could draw your attention to February 4th of 2022, were you working that day?
I wasn't.
And at some point, did you receive a call in regard to this case, this investigation?
I did.
And who, if anyone, called?
Chief Berkowitz.
And what, if anything, did Chief Berkowitz indicate?
He asked me if I was working. When I told him no, he asked who was.
And who, if anyone, did you indicate to him was working?
I told him Detective Sergeant Lank was working.
And as far as what, if anything, was that call in reference to?
He stated he was driving in the area of 34 Fairview because of the warm weather and the warm rain in the last couple of days.
And what, if anything, did he indicate?
He
saw?
He believed.
Sustain, I'm going to see its eyebrow, please.
Mhm. Okay, so sleepy. Uh, so a lot of problems arise when it's I believe or maybe type of responses. Uh, you if you didn't see it, if you didn't hear it, you can't testify to what was done. Like you can say, well, in the report it said, this, if they're asked about like a report or like the reporting of it, in like the actual documents, like police documents or something like that, but you can't just say, yeah, so and so was there and they they were doing this, but if you weren't there, if you didn't see it, you can't say what they would do because you weren't there. You don't know for sure. uh so it can get a little hairy.
And so just to be clear, Lieutenant, you did not go to Fairview Road on February 4th, 2022, correct?
I did not.
Okay, so then you can't testify to what happened there that day because you weren't there.
I have nothing further for this one.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross, finally. Here we go. Let's get some questions going and maybe some questions answered. Maybe. Or, just make them have a bad day. I don't know what the energy here is going to be.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning.
When was the first time you were ever interviewed about your conduct on this case, your involvement in this case?
I don't recall.
It was about a month ago, wasn't it? April 3rd, 2024?
When I was interviewed by, I don't know who you're referring to.
Formal interview by any law enforcement agency.
Oh, I was never, until about a month ago, I was not interviewed, correct.
And that interview was conducted by whom?
I met at the DA's office with the prosecutor, Adam Lowry.
And there was also a state trooper there,
There was,
Lieutenant Tully?
correct.
Okay. So Michael Proctor never formally interviewed you about your involvement in the case?
No, sir.
Never interviewed you about your involvement on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
No, sir.
Never interviewed you about your recovery of any physical evidence at the scene,
No, sir.
which would include the bloodstains as well as the piece of drinking glass?
That's correct.
Never interviewed you about where that evidence ultimately went and how it made its way back to Canton Police Department?
He never interviewed me, no.
And his partner, Yuri Butnik, also, I won't go through the litany of things, never interviewed you as well.
Correct.
And until April 3rd, 2024, nobody from the DA's office had interviewed you either.
That's correct.
Did you write a report about your involvement in the case?
I'm not on that particular day.
Did you write a report after that?
Yes.
When did you write that report?
Possibly January 2023.
Oh, a
I
year
believe,
later?
it was the request for the metadata, the acquisition of the photos report.
Okay, fair enough. Did you ever, I'll narrow my question. Did you ever write a report about your involvement on the day at the scene?
No, I did not.
So that's not documented, at least by you, that's not documented anywhere.
That's correct.
Did you take notes when you were at the scene?
No.
Did you go back to the station and memorialize your findings and your conduct at the scene by taking notes back at the station?
No, I did not.
So you have no notes and no report about anything that happened at Fairview on the 29th?
Not myself, no.
What?
Were you
Why
ever
would
instructed by any superior? You're pretty high up in the ranks. You reported to whom?
At that time, I reported to the deputy chief of police.
Right, either the deputy chief
Hi,
or the chief.
Crystalline. Good
Correct.
morning.
Did
How are
either
you?
the deputy chief or the chief instruct you, Lieutenant, don't worry about writing a report in this case?
No, they never said anything like that.
You would agree that it's one thing to respond to a scene, it's another thing to actually gather evidence at a scene,
That's correct.
especially a scene where it's at that time, a potential homicide of a police officer.
That's correct.
never wrote a report until a year later when it
Part of
was
the reason
necessary for
for
like the metadata
annotating,
trial.
memorializing exactly what evidence is recovered is so you can relay that to other officers, correct?
He was
Correct.
doing
So
the
for
leaf
instance, in
blowing.
your direct examination just a few minutes ago, you said that you went back to the scene at one point. What was the date where the drone was considered?
February 1st.
You go back to the scene on February 1st. That's 3 full days after the event, correct?
That is correct.
After the incident. And you said, I directed them to where John O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Yeah, I showed him. Yes,
But in fact, you never saw John O'Keefe's body, did you?
that's correct.
Okay, so
So
you
how
were
do you
giving them
know?
information that you had about which you had no personal knowledge, correct?
I had knowledge from other officers. I did not see John O'Keefe at the scene. He was transported to the hospital. That is correct.
Right.
Yes,
So you couldn't determine exactly how he was positioned, right?
not precisely.
From head to toe, right?
Not precisely.
Where his arms or his hands were.
That is correct. Yes.
He's a 6'2" man, correct?
I don't know.
You don't even know that?
I don't know his size. No.
If I told you that he's over 6 feet tall, would you have any quarrel with that?
If Mr. Lally told me, I would take it as fact.
Oh,
Fair enough. For purposes of my question, you don't want to take my word for it, but for purposes of this
Wow.
question, assuming that he's over 6 feet tall, there's a better than 6 foot margin.
if my
for
good
where he would
friend,
be
District
situated in the
Attorney
snow,
Mr.
correct?
Lally
From
told me,
toe
I would
to
believe
head.
it, but for me,
Correct.
it's hard.
And the
I don't
details
know.
matter
I
in a
can't
case
believe
like
it.
this. Any investigation, the details matter.
Surely.
Accuracy is vital in a homicide investigation, correct?
Correct.
You did find some blood droplets.
Oh,
We saw it on the screen, correct?
Correct.
You also found part of a drinking glass, correct?
That is correct.
Did you did you endeavor to make a diagram of exactly where those items were found?
No.
You're
so
aware.
why is
as
he
a
even here?
You were the former chief of detectives?
I was a detective sergeant.
Detective sergeant. You were supervisor over detectives.
Correct.
You're
Because
aware of
he's-
what cross coordinates are
Does he like
in
Mr. Lally?
measuring a crime
You
scene,
know?
correct?
Yes.
You take a stable
He
item
did it.
like a flagpole,
You
for
weren't
instance,
ripped
that might be
into
one that
By
doesn't
the
move.
defense, I
You
guess.
measure exactly from a compass position, exactly north or exactly west, a number of inches, maybe even down to meters and millimeters if you use that instead of inches, using meters, right?
Yeah, we don't employ that process.
So you don't employ a process where you could measure something from a known item north, south, east, or west, and then measure it from another known item and have an exact cross point of where that's.
We don't typically exercise in that in our investigative unit.
You knew how to do that, though.
Yes.
I mean, you've been trained on how to do that,
Yes.
but you didn't employ that technique here.
No.
So the glass, where the glass was found, it's
Wow,
sort of an
wow.
estimate.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
This
And
whole
where the
thing's a
blood was
sort of an
found,
estimate.
That's kind of an estimate also.
Yeah, we would guess that would be where his body was. Yes.
Okay. You just used the word guess.
Yes.
Right. But if you actually documented it using cross coordinates, you wouldn't have to guess. You'd know exactly where the tip of his head was, where the tip of his toes were, correct?
No,
Why not?
because he
What?
wasn't there when we got there.
Fair enough. When I say you, I meant other officers. If
Mm,
someone had employed that before he was
absolutely.
moved, they could have figured out exactly how he was situated, where he was in that yard, correct?
It would never happen. Life-saving measures come first. The officers are not going to start measuring while first responders are conducting life-saving measures. It doesn't happen.
That's exactly right. But once the body was
Fair.
moved, for
Yeah.
instance, Officer Saraf, who's literally standing there,
Mm.
could have said, okay, I just saw the tip of his head right here. He's now on the gurney. He could have measured that, right?
He could have, yes.
And then he
Yeah.
could have said the tip of his toes were right here, and he could have measured that.
Yes.
And could have got
certainly,
within like
when there's no life-saving
a
measures
few
at
inches.
play, you could have done the same thing with the drinking glass and the blood spots.
That's correct.
And in
correct.
terms of recovering those
There's-
blood spots, I'll get back to that in a second, but in terms of recovering those blood spots, you indicated that you used temporary evidence containers, correct?
Plastic cups, I said, yes.
Tell me where'd they come from? Where did they come from? Let me just hit this real fast. This moment is just adding. Oh, interesting. This moment is adding fuel to the fire of these cops did everything wrong from the very get get-go. They did everything wrong from the very get-go. They didn't do everything they could have, especially once they found out John O'Keefe, the man on the ground, was an officer. Usually when something like that happens and the knowledge of him being of someone in all I'm hearing is excuses, yes, usually the knowledge when police like someone injured down, not breathing, needing CPR, needing CCR, is found out to be a police officer, everyone jumps in and says, oh my gosh, we have to do every single thing correctly, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, make sure every single thing is done, because this is this is our brother in blue. Like, this is one of us. This is more, I don't want to say more important, but the details can be more important than a normal citizen. Kristlyn says, all I'm hearing is excuses. I agree. I agree to, I'd say the 90% of what I'm hearing is excuses. He made a great point. It's the life-saving measures that are happening. They do not care about how far they are from the fire hydrant. Absolutely. But the moment that he did get up and there was blood on the scene, there's glass on the scene, not from a taillight, but from a physical drinking glass on the scene, it should have been handled before the snow kept covering it up. It should have been handled. It should have been handled. That's basically it. He just blew around the crime scene and has no reports, nothing. The fact that he never wrote a report, never wrote down his sightings, never wrote down what he saw, he heard, he felt, he did nothing. But they got a little video. They got the highest quality video is of him leaf blowing the ground. This is crazy. Oops. This is too much.
Before responding to 34 Fairview, and you indicated that you were told to respond to 32 Fairview, right?
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Mistake on either dispatch's part or something.
Correct.
Whose
You
part?
figured out where to go once you got there.
You can tell by the emergency lights.
I'd like to know whose fault it was. That's at 32 instead of 34.
It was Sergeant Good who contacted you, correct?
That is correct.
And you were at home at the time,
That is correct.
which is why you needed to respond to Canton PD to get some foul weather here, correct?
Correct.
You also contacted Brian Albert's neighbor, a gentleman by the name of Tom Keller, correct?
That is correct.
And you wanted to let him know that you were responding over to the scene.
Yes, he was the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time.
Lieutenant in charge of detectives, and also the man who lived directly across the street from Brian Albert, correct?
I would say there's two property lines he's directly across from, 32 and 34.
Okay.
But yes, that vicinity.
Okay.
What? I'm sorry. I have to hear that
Is there
again.
a
I'm
reason
so
that you
sorry.
didn't contact Chief
I'm so sorry.
I would say
Brian Albert's neighbor, a gentleman by the name of to Canton PD to get some foul weather here, correct?
correct.
You also contacted Brian Albert's neighbor, a gentleman by the name of Tom Keller, correct?
That is correct.
And you wanted to let him know that you were responding over to the scene.
Yes, he was the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time.
Lieutenant in charge of detectives.
He was the lieutenant. His neighbor was the lieutenant in charge of detectives. This is not looking good.
And also the man who lived directly across the street from Brian Albert, correct?
I would say there's two property lines he's directly across from, 32 and 34.
Okay.
But yes, that vicinity.
Okay.
Wow.
Is there a reason that you didn't contact Chief Berkowitz on that day to let him know where you were responding? Why did you pick Deputy Chief Keller?
Because that would be my next call. Like I said, he is the lieutenant in charge of detectives at the time. We were responding to a possible crime scene, a possible unattended death. He would be my call.
The normal chain of command.
Correct.
That you knew at the time that Chief Berkowitz was actually out on leave, having been injured on duty in some similar way.
I don't recall that. Chief Berkowitz is always present.
Not only did you respond to the scene, but either you were tasked by one of your superiors, or you, as the ranking officer on the. I guess I should ask this first. Forgive me. Were you the ranking officer on scene when you arrived?
Yes, sir, I was.
So either having been tasked by one of your superiors, or because you were the ranking officer on scene, did you take over the coordination of the preservation of that crime scene?
Yes, I did.
So others were sort of answering
Wow.
to you.
Correct.
Wow. And you never made a
You
report?
indicated that
You never
You
made
had-
a report?
never preserved a crime scene in the snow before.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
talk about that. What's
30
going on with
years
that?
plus,
30 years.
and your
30
policing experiences here in the Boston area,
Correct.
snow's a lot.
Sure.
Snow's a hell of a
30
lot.
plus years, you've never processed a crime scene in the snow?
No, I have not.
You're
Lucky
joking.
you.
Well, we don't typically process our own crime scenes. Sometimes we use the state police. Sometimes we use Plymouth County detectives.
So save the state police, or setting them aside because they were not tasked on this call yet.
Correct.
You were then in charge of preserving this crime scene, right?
That's correct.
What exactly did you do, if you can name the categories? What exactly did you do to actually preserve the entire crime scene?
I'm sure I can tell you that I had Sergeant Good move all the cars so I could photograph the scene, documented by photo evidence.
I
I
would
told
say
Detective
barely.
Sergeant Lake, make sure he has initial statements from everybody present. And that's basically what we did prior to searching the scene itself.
That's what
With
I'm
regard
feeling
to
too.
Sergeant Lang,
I'm feeling that as well.
You told him to make sure that we had statements. Your,
In
your
like a
words, we
really
had statements
gross
from all the
way,
witnesses
like
that were at the scene.
Initial statements, yes.
grimy.
Does that mean
You
the people
know?
inside the house?
Yes.
Maybe people
It's
across
such
the
a
street,
lie.
if there were people across the street?
No, it didn't include them at the time. It included people that were involved from the prior night's incident outing, I would call it.
At the time that you tasked Sergeant Lang with this responsibility, did you know personally that you were standing on the property of Brian Albert?
I did.
Did you also know that Sergeant Lang had an ongoing and a long-time relationship with the Albert family?
Objection.
Did you know that?
I know he knew them.
She's allowing
I
it.
think you're mischaracterizing the relationship.
Okay.
Did you see a problem with having somebody who knew the parties taking the initial statements from
I
those
think you're
parties?
mischaracterizing.
Not at all,
the
Sergeant Lake.
relationship.
No issue at all.
Not in your mind.
Not in my mind.
Were you aware that before you got to the location, that Sergeant Lang had taken it upon himself to already make contact with the individuals in the house?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar, please.
Because she wants to allow it, but she wants to make sure that like she wants that my opinion what just happened. Objection. She wants to allow it, but she wants him to ask it in a different way, and she wants it asked in a very specific way. And so she's going to inform them on. This is what I think is happening. She's going to inform them that this questioning is it's going a little bit deeper. I would like you to be very careful in how you ask these questions because there depends on the way that they're asked. That's what I'm feeling. That's the vibe that I'm getting. You can process crime scenes in the snow. Absolutely. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. It can make things a lot more difficult for sure. And in my opinion, the way that the leaf blower was used, it should not have been needed to be used in the way that they were using it. The crime scene, the fact that it was actively snowing and causing problems on the road, for investigators of the police department instead of just random like beat cops that are just kind of called out to, to random things like, there's something happening, go check it out type of energy. It can make it difficult, but I think things should have been handled a lot faster than allowing like the snow to pile up on the crime scene. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Steven Saroff was more concerned with Karen acting crazy. And by
Thank you,
crazy, I
Mayor.
mean that like in probably the way that he would say the word, not the way I would say the word.
Lieutenant, just before we went to
and section
sidebar, I
12 in
asked a
her,
quick question.
Then dealing with
Were you
the
aware
crime scene.
at the time that you tasked Sergeant Lang to go talk to the folks inside the house that he had already gone into the house to talk to them?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
You indicated that one of the reasons, I'd like to move back. I'm bouncing around a little bit. I apologize.
I understand.
one of the things that you talked about was the preservation of the crime scene and the lack thereof because of the inclement conditions.
Correct.
There was wind blowing from all directions.
Yes.
There was snow falling.
Yes.
It was icy cold out.
Icy
Yes.
cold.
There was already snow accumulated on the ground, about 4 inches, you said.
At least it was different spots because of the wind drifts.
That's fair.
Wouldn't that be even more of a reason in a potential homicide investigation to adequately preserve the scene as best you possibly could?
Of course.
Wouldn't you want to, for instance, protect the area? You mentioned a tent.
Yes.
Wouldn't you want to make sure that anybody from the civilian side and or officers don't just start traipsing through the middle of the crime scene?
That was all done.
As a matter of fact, the first responders the EMTs had already done what they needed to do in the scene. And Mr. O'Keefe had been transported to the hospital, correct?
That is correct.
So that was not a concern.
No,
So nobody needed to be inside that scene that wasn't authorized to be there,
that's correct.
civilian or officers.
That's correct.
Who was it that told you specifically where John O'Keefe's body was?
I don't recall specifically. I
Yes, you do.
had a collaborative meeting with Sergeant Lank and Sergeant Good.
But they
Were you
also
aware
weren't
at the
there.
time that you had the meeting with Sergeant Lank, that Sergeant Lank did not ever see John O'Keefe's body in the position?
Yes, I did.
They also
I
weren't
don't
there.
believe Sergeant Good did, to my knowledge. I believe John O'Keefe may have been in the ambulance at that time.
None of
John
them
O'Keefe-
saw.
I'm sorry, I got a little confused. John O'Keefe
John
may have been
O'Keefe.
in the ambulance at which time?
When some of the officers arrived.
So if that were the case, then they wouldn't have any personal knowledge of where John O'Keefe's body was.
So how are they going to tell you?
Not to your precise locations, yes.
You mentioned
Your
the tent.
precise location.
And you said that you, in an answer to a question by Mr. Lally, you did not go back to Canton PD to get the tent. You had a tent in your trunk or something?
That's correct.
Why'd you have a tent? Can you tell me why you had a tent in your trunk? What for? Personal use? Birthday parties? Were you having a block party?
When you interviewed with Lieutenant Tully, did he specifically ask you, this is about a month ago, did he ask you about the tent?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection if you were to review just a small snippet of your report, of his report
Yes,
about your interview?
yes.
May I approach you on it?
Yes.
At that and direct your attention to paragraph 4. Tell me if you recognize that document.
I don't recognize the documents. First time I've seen it.
Fair enough. Does it, read the highlighted portion and tell me whether that refreshes your recollection about a conversation you had with Lieutenant Tully about the tent.
Okay, I didn't have,
Read it to yourself.
yes, okay,
You've read that?
yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Fast reader.
Do you recall telling Lieutenant Tully,
You can ask him if that refreshes his recollection.
does that refresh your recollection at this point?
It doesn't change my recollection.
You said you didn't recollect exactly what you told Lieutenant Tully about the tent. And I'm asking, does that refresh your recollection about what you told Lieutenant Tully about the tent?
Yeah, that's not what I said about the tent.
Okay, so you didn't say, I drove to Canton PD headquarters to retrieve a tent to protect the area where O'Keefe was found from falling snow, but never used the tent due to high winds.
We didn't have a tent at that time.
That wasn't my question. I'm being very specific. Did you say that to Lieutenant Tully?
No, that was misinterpreted.
Okay, so if he got that, if that's in his report, that's incorrect.
It's not accurate, correct?
Okay.
Opposite of
Is
accurate.
there anything else that you read in that report that's not accurate?
You asked me to read the highlighted version. That's what I read. I didn't see any, I didn't read any other part of the document.
He's getting feisty.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yeah, so reports are very important, especially
You indicated, still staying on the crime
like the
scene
body cam footage.
on January
like,
29th, you
no one
indicated
had
on
body
direct
cam.
examination
and so
that the area adjacent to the blood stains that you
we're
saw
working off
and the
of like
drinking glass that you found,
dash cam
that area
footage
was
and just
somewhat
random
trampled by
pictures
you presume the first responders, the
Which are
EMTs.
especially
That's correct.
important.
You also
Or
indicated that
especially-
you didn't see any other signs of shoe prints going from the street to the house, correct?
And the ranking officer
From
did
the
not-
scene to the house,
From the
correct.
scene to the house.
Correct.
Meaning, what do you mean when you say that, from the scene to the house?
So the house, you have the house, and the scene was to the far left, actually on the property line with number 32. So I didn't see any footprints. The only other footprints I saw was where the officers walked around and put up the crime scene tape.
Meaning walking through the yard
Correct,
and putting up crime scene tape.
correct.
All right, and if somebody had, how many of those sets of prints did you see?
I don't recall.
Did you photograph or seek to have anybody else photograph the area from the scene to the house?
Just those long shots that you saw in the exhibits.
Okay. And the snow was actively falling at the time, correct?
Yes,
So if there had been a print a couple of hours earlier, you very well might not see it.
that is correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you saw how fast, within like the hour, the scene where John was covered in a few layers of snow
I'd like
that
to
he
ask you a couple of questions about the
blew with the
collection of
leaf
the
blower.
blood. You found what you thought was blood initially, right?
That's correct.
Pink in color, reddish in color,
Correct.
and you began the process of removing layers of snow, in other words, dusting the area with a leaf blower.
That's correct.
Had you ever used a leaf blower in a crime scene preservation effort?
First time.
First time? And you indicated your testimony was temporary evidence containers to collect that blood, correct?
Yep, we utilized cups, plastic cups.
Those
Where
were red
did they
Solo
come
cups,
from?
right?
That's correct.
The same
had
kind of
red
red Solo
Solo
cup you drink beer out of at a barbecue?
Yeah, sure, you could.
Objection, Your Honor. Strike.
I'll allow it.
There's
Yeah.
nothing special about the red Solo cup?
Other than their plastic, nothing special.
And where
Where
did
did
you
you-
get those red Solo cups?
We got them from Lieutenant Kelleher.
So in other words, you got the, to use your words, the evidence containers from a neighbor.
Correct.
He had some Solo cups in his house.
We asked him if he had any plastic containers, any type of plastic container that we could utilize.
How far were you from Canton PD? From 34 Fairview to Canton PD? Give me an idea.
Mile and a half.
So
Mile
even
and a
in
half away
really bad
from-
weather, 4 minutes, 5 minutes,
Maybe 10.
right, to drive?
honestly.
Sure.
Depending on if roads
you
are
didn't
plowed
go
or
back
not.
to Canton PD to get actual evidence containers, correct?
We wouldn't have temporary plastic containers that what we were looking for. We're looking to take samples of snow. We wouldn't have had, I know for a fact we did not have those. If we needed bags, needle containers, things of that nature, we're all set. But as far as plastic containers that we wanted to utilize, we didn't have them.
Do you have any glass containers?
No.
So Canton PD does not have or utilize evidence collection containers that are plastic?
We have needle containers that are plastic. We have blood swabs that are in plastic containers. But for what we wanted to take a sample, we did not have. So we improvised.
My
What?
next question is certainly Canton PD employs and owns sterile swabs.
Correct.
Sterile swab is in a container that's long and usually the swab is connected to the
Wait, you
lid.
just said
Pop it out,
open
and
cups
sealed.
rolling
That's
around?
and forensically stable,
Open
correct?
Unlidded
And the
red
reason that
soap
it's
cups?
sealed and forensically stable
People
is
just
so
holding them?
nothing can contaminate the sample, correct?
Sure. Yes.
Just as
He was
importantly,
camping in a
the
blizzard.
blood sample can't contaminate anything else.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Did you go to Canton PD a mile away and get sterile swabs for the blood collection?
Blood was frozen. We didn't think it would be viable.
You didn't think it would be viable?
Correct.
Didn't
If
think it
you
would be
touched the swab to cold blood, you think you might get some blood on that swab?
I wasn't sure it would be efficient for testing.
You've been
So what
you've
you
been
did
doing this
instead
for over 30
was
years.
You gathered red Solo cups from a neighbor,
Hmm.
unsterilized, and scooped up the snow with what you thought the blood was, and just carried them back to the truck?
Nope, we took 6 samples, individual samples. Our philosophy was we'll let the crime lab extract it the way they best see fit. Those 6 samples were bagged and then transported back to Camp Police Headquarters and placed into evidence.
Were they covered?
No, not that I recall.
They weren't sealed in any way?
No.
So if somebody
Couldn't they just
sneezed
make a
over the top of
call
one of
to
those
someone
cups?
who works in a crime lab? Like, hey, we have frozen
they-
blood.
They
What's the
were
best
sealed
way
in
to
a
do
bag,
that?
brown evidence bag. That time, nobody was going to sneeze over the cup.
What? I am so confused. So he just said,
Do you have a
open
rough estimate
cups.
of how many people handled
Red Solo cups don't have lid.
those red
Just in a
Solo
bag.
cups before they were used to collect blood evidence in this homicide case?
I am so
You
confused.
want me to estimate?
Give me an idea.
Sure, Sergeant Lang.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. My question was a bad one. Before you took possession of the red Solo cups, you have any idea how many people before you had handled those Solo cups?
I took them out of a package, so probably none.
How about before they were packaged?
I assume Solo doesn't sell contaminated cups. I would say none.
So
Okay.
they're certainly not forensically stable. They're not sterile.
They're not sterile.
By your, I don't know what definition you're looking for,
Oh,
but
come
I
on.
would agree.
Do you think it's standard practice for a police department to borrow red Solo cups from a neighbor to gather
From a
evidence?
neighbor.
Objection.
You can go ahead and answer that, Lieutenant.
Of course
You
not.
can answer that.
Nothing about the scene was standard.
Right.
Uh,
The glass
Same.
shard. I'll touch on
uh,
the Solo cups in just a second, but I want to talk about the glass shard of the drinking glass.
Mhm.
Were you the one that found the drinking glass?
I was operating the leaf blower and uncovered the glass, yes.
So you were the first one, well, I guess you couldn't tell me if you're the first one, but you noticed it pretty quick.
I wouldn't say it was quick, but we uncovered it.
Okay. And then there is you mentioned a CARS report in your direct examination. There was a report done of where some of these items were found, correct?
You'll have to clarify. I'm not sure what you mean.
Did you mention a CARS report, which is a report of the crime scene, where things were located, mapping of those things?
You objected. It was sustained. I never got to answer that question.
Touche. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
that was kind of funny. You objected and it was sustained. I never got to answer. So what do you want? Like,
I don't recognize it. I could tell you what it is.
That's okay. If you don't recognize it, that's all I need. Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Thank you.
all right,
Are
you recognize it?
familiar Generally, I don't necessarily need to talk about this one, but are you familiar generally with CARS reports?
Not at all.
Not at all. That's not sort of
I
in
so
your
agree that
framework.
Not in
all
my
training
realm.
went out the
Okay.
window for this one.
Are you aware that there is a process
All
by which
training.
items of evidence are mapped, or they attempt to be mapped
And I agree.
for a crime scene?
There's a massive
I'm not,
lack of
I
training.
don't do homicide
when
investigations. I'm
it
not
comes
aware of that.
to
Okay.
the police.
Again, with regard to where the blood drops were found, let me go back to one other question I
Hold on
had.
for just one
You said
second.
you took 6 samples, correct?
That's correct.
Did you precisely indicate in any report or note or diagram exactly which blood drops were in which Solo cup?
I did not.
All right.
As you were using that snowblower and you uncovered the glass cup and more of the blood samples, at any point, did you see a size 12 men's shoe black in color?
No.
At any point, did you see a man's baseball hat black in color?
No.
You actually dug out a portion of you didn't dig it out, you moved it with your foot, or somebody did, portion of the berm or the curb that separates the street from the yard, correct?
That is correct.
At any point along that curb line, did you see a men's shoe?
Along the exposed curb line, no.
Did you see it anywhere else?
No,
And you didn't see a hat anywhere else?
no,
You didn't see any bright red taillight material anywhere else?
I did not.
You did not
Nope.
see any clear taillight material?
I did. I did not.
You did
Nope.
not see any black plastic material? No. You certainly didn't see 45 pieces of plastic material.
I did not.
Oh, so when did it get
If
there?
you found a broken glass, if you find a broken glass on somebody's yard in a situation like this, did that seem out of place to you?
They were
They were
able to
coming from a bar.
see.
It didn't seem totally out of place, no.
How do you know
At
they
the
were coming
time
from
that
a
you
bar?
found the broken
Like,
glass,
how do you know the glass
did
came
you
from a bar?
rationally think, well, maybe the rest of this glass is inside the residence?
No.
You did not think that.
No, there was a reason that I didn't think that.
Why? What's
Did
the
you
reason?
think that, well, let me ask you this. Did you ever go inside the house to search for the other part of the glass?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
Because
not.
you made up
Never
your
went
mind
inside the house.
initially where that glass came from.
Objection.
You can answer that, sir.
You can answer that.
No,
Did you search the house for any other matching glasses?
no.
Matter of fact, you didn't
Nope.
search the house for any physical items, did you?
Of course not.
Is that
Of
because
course
that house
not.
belonged to a Boston police officer?
No, it's because it requires probable cause, as you know, which we did not have.
Or at
Whoa.
least you didn't think you had at that time.
We knew we didn't have it.
Did you seek it from a judge?
I'm familiar with what probable cause is.
Did you seek a probable cause warrant from a judge?
No, I did not.
Right.
Did not seek a oh my God. Oh. Did not.
Did you ask for consent to search the house?
We wouldn't do consent, and that's in a death investigation.
Yeah, that was my question. My question
No,
was,
I did not.
okay. Is that because you were at the house of a Boston police officer?
No, it's because we wouldn't do it. Because if consent is denied, we still don't have probable cause, and we still couldn't search the house.
But you never asked, did you?
Never asked.
They never searched the house. And I've been saying
According
this since like day
to
one. They
your interview
never
with
searched the house. They never asked for a
Lieutenant
search
Tully.
warrant. They never got a search warrant. They never went into the home
After going to
where
the
a
scene the
fallen
first
officer
time,
was found
you
on
then
the front yard
returned
of.
back to Canton Police Department, correct?
Yes,
At that point, you remember having a
Never
conversation
searched
with
outside or
Chief
inside.
Berkowitz, correct?
that is correct.
And you indicated that
Nothing
having
is
that
known.
conversation with Chief
Not
Berkowitz, that was
consent.
about Canton Police Department recusing themselves.
Not doing any further investigative interviews, yes.
And you indicated actually in that conversation that you agreed with Chief Berkowitz that Canton should be recused, correct?
He agreed with me.
Your assessment that the recusal should take place,
Yes, it was.
and he agreed.
That is correct.
Okay. And the reason for that recusal was because of the relationship between the Albert family and the Canton Police Department.
No.
What was the reason for the recusal?
What was the
The reason was we had a Boston police officer on another Boston police officer's lawn property, and that property owner was the brother of somebody in our investigative unit.
That's one way to put it. Another way
That's
to put
one
it
way
would
to
be
put it.
because of the Albert family having a relationship with the Canton Police Department.
Yeah,
It has to
period.
do with Detective Albert having a relationship with his family.
Right. Or the other side of that is his family having a relationship with Canton Police Department.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Go ahead. Move on, please.
That's fair. He was doing
What
it a
time
lot.
was that conversation
He
with
got his
Chief
point across.
Berkowitz?
It was after 8 a.m. when we got back to the police department.
Wow.
You then
wow.
traveled back to 34 Fairview to interview the homeowners with Sergeant Lang?
Sergeant Lake was doing the interviews, yes, but I accompanied him.
Okay. Approximately what time did you arrive back at 34 Fairview to engage these interviews?
Approximately 9 o'clock.
Were you and Sergeant Lang well, let me ask you this. At that time, did you know whether Sergeant Lang had already gone into the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you knew that you were not the first person to go in and make contact with the individuals inside the home. That was Sergeant Lang
Sergeant Lake and Sergeant Good, correct.
before you ever got there.
Correct.
Okay. Did they show you any documentation, notes, or anything of that initial interview?
No.
Do you know whether or not they took notes of that initial interview?
I don't.
Do you know whether they recorded that initial interview?
I know they did not.
You indicated that you personally knew Brian Albert. Is that right?
I knew him since I became a police officer, yes.
And so you indicated that you had a professional relationship with him, but not necessarily a personal relationship with him.
Correct.
And did you indicate that
Did you
early
know that he
on?
was in the house before you walked in the house?
No, I did not.
What was your your professional interaction with Brian Albert before you walked into that house that day?
Previously?
Correct. In general.
So in general, as a detective, he was with the fugitive unit at one point. He was helpful when we had a fugitive we needed to apprehend in Boston, things of that nature, job-related things.
Had you ever, for lack of a better phrase, hung out with Brian Albert?
Not a day.
Never socialized with him?
No, not intentionally. It's possible if I went to a retirement party, could he have been present? Possibly, but not that I'm aware.
But you had no social relationship with him?
Zero.
I believe that.
You indicated that there were 5 or 6 people inside the house, including Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe.
Yes.
The way
That's
he
correct.
said that,
So
I
you
believe
clearly
that
knew those
he's
2
not
people.
friends.
I didn't know Jen McCabe. I know that Sergeant Lake was going to speak with her, but I didn't know her personally. I never had a conversation with her.
What was it
I
about
also
Jen
believe
McCabe that you recall as opposed to the other 4 or 5 people that were in the house?
Sergeant Lake was talking to her.
You just remember that name?
That's who he went to talk to.
Got it. So he went back specifically with the intent of talking to Jennifer McCabe.
That's correct.
That's when you accompanied.
That is correct.
Was that interview recorded?
No,
Did you take any notes about that interview?
I did not.
Did you write a report about that interview?
I did not.
Nope, he didn't do it. He didn't do a damn
You said
thing.
that there were,
So if you was a leaf
other
blower.
than Brian Albert and
Oh my God, time to get him off
Jennifer
the
McCabe, there were
stand.
3 or 4 other people
There are no
in the
answers
house.
except no one did their
Were
job.
those 3 or
That's all
4 other
really.
people in the house at the time that John O'Keefe was found dead
Especially
or dying
him.
on the lawn?
I don't have the answer to that.
Did you think that might have been an important thing to find out?
Again, I didn't think of that at that time, and I didn't think it was important at that time. I knew that Sergeant Lank had already interviewed people in the house.
You had what you knew at that time, Lieutenant, was
Documented
you had
interviews.
an officer, a Boston police officer, who was either dead or dying on the front lawn of a house with a bunch of occupants, and you didn't think that it was necessary to investigate or interview those occupants yourself?
No, I did not. At that time, I wanted to not participate in investigative interviews.
You didn't want to.
You did tell Lieutenant
But it sounded
Tully
like
in
you
your
said
interview with him,
you didn't want to.
volunteered that Brian Higgins was not present when you went back to the house, correct?
I didn't believe he was.
What, you didn't believe he was?
No, I don't recall Brian Higgins being there.
Okay.
I don't recall who the other people were at that time.
But Brian Higgins was not one of them.
I don't know the answer to that. He could have been. I can't say with certainty.
You know Brian Higgins.
I do.
Obviously, you know him well.
I do.
Matter of fact, you occupy sort of the same space at Kenton PD, correct?
That is correct.
You might see him most days out of the week.
No, but I know him.
He said
Matter of
no.
fact, you've got a social relationship with Brian Higgins as well.
I have been social with Brian Higgins, yes.
So you know him professionally and socially. You can't tell the jurors whether or not he was in that home when you went back over there to interview individuals about a Boston police officer who had fallen and was either dead or dying on the front lawn.
Objection.
Go ahead and answer that, sir.
I can't answer that question. I had no conversation with Brian Higgins, so I don't recall.
You do know that on January 29th, well, let me ask you, foundationally, did you go back after that series of unrecorded interviews? Did you go back to Canton Police Department and work the rest of the day?
Yes,
Brian Higgins was also at the station for nearly the entire day.
again, I don't recall that.
You're aware that Brian Higgins had been granted a key card for the station?
Yes,
I'm guessing that is a relatively rare thing if you're not a Canton police officer to have a key card and full access to the station.
there were a couple of ATF agents that had that access, yes.
Okay, but he was one of them.
Was one of them, yes.
Is that access restricted, Lieutenant? In other words, does his key card work the same as your key card?
I don't know the answer to that.
He would have, to your knowledge, he roamed throughout the station at will, correct?
I don't know how he roamed. He's a very private person. You very rarely see him. Usually his habits were he'd go up a front stairwell right to his office.
But his access, I guess I'm struggling with the question. His access was not limited to your knowledge.
I don't know the answer to that. I can't answer that to my knowledge.
You could go into any door he wanted to.
I would doubt it.
You would doubt that it would be limited.
I would doubt he'd have unlimited access. The patrolmen don't have full access. It all depends by your grade. Where he's an outside agency, I'm sure he had limited access.
Who has access to the sound floor?
The doors, only whoever's in the dispatch area, the overhead doors. There is one pedestrian door that everybody would have access to.
So he would have access to that as well.
Yes.
Where is Chief Berkowitz's office in relation to the rest of Canton PD, the physical building?
The best way to describe it, I don't know if the jury is familiar with the building, but if you were looking from Washington Street dead on, it's the top floor, far left office.
And is that, I don't know this, I'm not being, it's not rhetorical. Is it 3 floors or 2 floors?
So it's really 3 floors, but it's numbered 1, 1A, and 2.
So he would be on 2, 3 physical floors up.
Correct.
Thank you. When you had the meeting that you earlier described with Chief Berkowitz, where you indicated that he needed to recuse himself, was that in his office or someplace else?
I was in the office of the detective sergeant.
Which is where?
It's on floor 1A.
All right, we're going to take a 5-10 minute break.
Okay, and this is where I am going to call it for today. I am going to tomorrow be streaming all day. This is where I'm gonna call it for today. I gotta do some things, but we're up. I think this is a good place to stop for today. Yes, we are about half a day behind still. Because, well, I guess a day and a half. But tomorrow we are going to, so Wednesday, we're going to finish up Monday. What is today? Tomorrow, we're going to finish up Monday, and then we'll be all day Tuesday, and then we'll just continue through Friday, even though there's no court on Friday. So Friday will be our catch-up day as well. It just kind of works out good. There's no court on Friday. I'm kind of glad there's no court on Friday. So it gives us kind of gives me some time to catch up because I got to go to work and stuff like that. So we're gonna leave it here today. I believe they're gonna finish this witness out. They're going to send the jury out. They're going to voir dire probably one of those witnesses that they were talking about earlier today, and then afternoon testimony. So we will pick this up tomorrow, and we'll make a note of where we are in the stream. We'll pick it up tomorrow for day 5 afternoon, and then we will catch up on day 6 as well. So we'll do probably like a day and a half of trial tomorrow. So I'll be here all day tomorrow streaming with you guys. So bring some snacks. This witness, crazy. I'm going to, I've been talking throughout, so you guys already know my opinion, but I like to, instead of just kind of jump in, I like to kind of digest it, and then we'll do like a recap in the morning. That way, if anyone wants to see like the recap of it, we'll just do it. I'll just kind of recap what happened, where we are. Especially with this witness, he is giving us a lot of answers to a lot of questions, but they're not necessarily answers that he wants to give us. They're unfortunately just the truth, and it's people did not do their jobs right, at least in my opinion, and what I believe to probably be some of the jurors' opinions as well. So that's where we're going to end for today. Even though it wasn't a lot of court, there was a lot of court. But yeah, so thanks for being here. I will catch you guys tomorrow morning. We'll be back. I'm going to try to start at like 9. I'm going to try to start at 9. It's hard getting out of bed. But anywho, thanks for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.